time, these things are very innocent, but that's the way that kids stay connected now. So sexcasting is now these videos that are streamed in either real time or sent as digital files. So we've all heard about sexting, a lot of that in the news now, but basically this is just one level up in terms of it's either real time or it's a file, but we're talking about video. So moving along to the next, perhaps you could help me move to the next slide. I'm having a little problem. So how are teens sexcasting? Really, it's very easy now. Most laptops come with a camera built in. There's some images there for ones that are not perhaps the PC. They're very affordable and expensive to have the camera put right on top. Most smartphones and tablets, it's very, very easy. The video is at the touch of the hand, and as we mentioned at the beginning, I have kids in kindergarten, and I've seen them shoot video. It's very easy to do, and it's probably even more so for the younger folks than some of the older folks. So it's very prevalent, so very, very easy to do. So why are kids sexcasting? To us, a generational thing, it might seem, why would anyone want to do that? A lot of reports show that, there's the thrill of it, there's some peer pressure. There's also the mistaken belief that it will be private. So sexcasting isn't just a small portion of adults in the pornography industry. Really it's happening with classmates, friends, and sometimes strangers. And sexcasting, I would encourage parents to not be too quick to dismiss it, thinking, oh, that's not my kid or will never happen to me, because there are some, really serious consequences that can occur as a result of it. So, if you look at some of the statistics, studies show that 66% of girls and 60% of boys have sent sexually explicit content for what they feel is just to be fun or flirtatious. More than 50% of girls have sent this material as presents for their boyfriends. Teens record and send things like flirtatious dances, videos. Sometimes there's cases where some teens are secretly recording people in compromising positions as a way to bully, tease, or pressure some of their peers. So there's a lot of different reasons for it, but in part it could be that it's just very easy to do, and there's the sense that, there's other people that are doing it, not to say that it should become an exception, acceptable. It is happening. So I'd like to share a story. At SpectraSoft, we sell a product that enables parents to understand what the child is doing on the laptop or PC from a remote location. We had a grandfather tell us that he was able to intercept his granddaughter, who was 11, who was about to take off her top in a video chat portal for a stranger. Now, he was able to intercept this. Grandma went in, was able to stop before anything happened. In this particular case, this child needed some additional help. This child got into counseling. There were some issues there. And this was an outreach, right? This was a symptom there's an underlying reason. Not that it's in every case, but in some case, professional help is needed. But to be honest, even sitting here in my position, I was shocked at the age of someone so young would be participating in something, a site such as that is encouraging that kind of behavior. And it's so easy, and I can tell you the grandfather and grandmother were very, very surprised with that behavior. So, and I'd also like to share that there is an alarming study that just was released last week that says actually it's the Internet Watch Foundation. The study revealed that 88% of self-made sexual or suggestive images and videos posted by young people are taken from their original online location and uploaded to porn parasite websites. So that is alarming, 88%. It sounds very high, but they are they know what they're doing. Internet Watch Foundation is a very prestigious organization, so that's alarming. So, what is some of the impacts? Well, just this year, in fact, I think it was in September, the U.S. News and World Report released a study that showed that teens who send this kind of, like sex messenger videos, they're more likely to engage in risky behavior. And they define risky behavior in the study, unprotected sex or sex under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And this is new research because research earlier in the year done both in the state of Texas and the state of Michigan showed counter to that. It showed more as, no, kids will be kids, there isn't any correlation with any risky behavior. But me as a mom, I didn't find it that surprising that showed there is a correlation between young people engaging in some of this activity who would be more prone to some of the more riskier behaviors. So in here, there's also MTV has done some research on this as well with some additional statistics, just basically showing that there is a trend toward teenagers just becoming more acceptable, if you will, and information and these pictures being sent and videos being sent back and forth. And this, the MTV digital abuse study showed, basically 33% have received these kind of messages or text messages with sexual words, and 21% have taken videos of themselves. And this study was released in 2011. It's the MTV digital abuse. And that word is probably one you'll hear more frequently, digital abuse. I know it's one I hadn't heard before this year, but basically showing how, there are many forms of abuse, and digital is one that is making its way into our vernacular here. So moving on, it let me know too, I know it's a lot to absorb some of the statistics, but just basically want to drive home that this is something that chances are, if your child or your kid's friends are engaging in it, there's a good chance you wouldn't know about it, because this is something obviously that the kids typically wouldn't share, come forward with to their parents. So I really would like to encourage people to don't wait to have these kind of conversations. These conversations should be had when the child is very young, and I don't think soon is too soon. So because I'll tell you, I get a chance to talk to a lot of people who are in a position, our customers here, that never thought they would be in this kind of position, but they find themselves, and it's never your kid until it is. So I think sometimes having that healthy dose of skepticism and having some preventative action in the home can really pay off. So, first of all, what could be some people say, what are some of the warning signs? How would I know if something was going on? Because the days of keeping the computer in a common area, well, that's still a good practice. Those days are pretty much over because kids have the power of the internet in their hand with smartphones. So I think some signs to be aware of would be, is your child spending excessive amounts of time online or on their phones, especially when no one's home or it's late at night? If you find pornography on your child's computer or smartphone, or other kinds of inappropriate or explicit photos of your child or their teens. If your child acts flustered or abnormal when you walk into the room, or they're quickly changing the screen or turning off the monitor or changing the view on the phone, as a parent, you've got to trust that intuition, say, that seems odd, that seems off, and it's happened more than once. I think a reflex reaction, well, kids are the kids. But I really think in this day and age, we all have to take pause and say, you know what, let's take a minute to figure out what's going on and make sure that our kids are being protected. And that means being involved not just offline, but online as well, because I will tell you that for teens, especially these days, for us as grown-ups, the line often is blurred. We have a separation. We say, well, that's online and this is offline. But for kids, because so much socialization occurs online, it's not separate for them. For them, it's all sort of a continuation. And I think parents need to be aware that kids, not unlike adults, they probably have a couple of 2 or 3 personas. One is the persona that you see at home. There's another one that's at school. And I'd like to argue there's a third one that can often happen online, because sometimes kids' behaviors and choices they make online are incongruent with what you see as a parent. And by that I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who thought that their child was in a situation of no harm because they got very good grades. And I would say, well, that's great, they're getting good grades. In some cases, it can mask, high performance at school can mask some other problems and give parents a false sense of security for other issues that may be happening. Lastly, another way to find out anything, is there something potentially going on? And this may not be the case, but if you see large data charges, not so much with your ISP, but more on your phone, if they're running up against the wall on data, typically data gets eaten up by looking at a lot of video or uploading a lot of video. Now that could be all innocent, but as a parent, it's the responsibility to say, okay, how did you churn through all your data? Was it because you downloaded a movie on Netflix, or was it because you were doing something else that you weren't supposed to be doing? So I really think that having some of these conversations early as opposed to later are really important. And so, one of the ways to do it is just goes down to having an open line of communications with your kids and listening with an open mind, not being judgmental and focusing on building a stronger relationship. That's the backdrop for starting this conversation about sex casting. I'd say another recommendation would be look into current events, because you really don't have to look too far into current events to show some real-life examples to kids about how some of these poor choices that aren't well thought out can really play out very poorly. For instance, I don't know if some of you may have heard of Amanda Todd tragedy, which happened probably about 30 days ago or so, of the young teenager in Canada who was actually, this started out, she was on a video chat, lifted up her shirt. That image then became the downfall of many online torments and bullying, and in the end, she took her own life. So I think in some cases, talking to your kids about things that happen in real life make them more real to the kid versus, for instance, if I start droning on, I can tell when my kids are they're not engaged, they're not listening to what I say, or they feel what I have to say doesn't relate to them because, I'm a lot older than my kids. So I'd also like to share with you, this is another site you could use, for example. There's a site, basically there's a site that makes money publishing some of those nude pictures, just like I alluded to that statistic that was raised by the IWF recently. The site is called Is Anyone Up? It's a fairly simple concept. Someone submits nude posters to the website through the site submission form, maybe a jilted ex, a recent hookup, a vengeful friend. And then the site also receives some self-submissions as well. But anyhow, what happens then is on the site, these photos are uploaded and they're attached with screen grabs from this person's Facebook, Tumblr, or Twitter accounts, whatever's available. And sometimes the guy that runs the site, he has a pithy caption or some kind of reaction, and that's usually pretty much it. This site gets 30 million page views a month, and it's horrible categories. The category is bad whores, there's garganoils, there's other ones where would or would not. I mean, you can imagine just some of the very poor behavior that goes on. And what happens, what's very interesting to me, and this site, as parents should be aware, it's not just women, it's also men, because I know I have both boys and girls, and I'm concerned about both my girls and boys. But what was really alarming to me is that this is not illegal. It's protected under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. So basically, this act provides immunity for Internet service providers, which is interpreted as websites and blogs who publish information provided by others. So as long as this website's material isn't illegal, because they're going through this submission form, really the website isn't liable. And I found that really disturbing because this site only posts third-party content. It's legally immune, even though the website encouraged people to sell it and send pictures. So going back to my point of sometimes showing things that are happening right now, like severe consequences, kids are smart, and sometimes it's just because you haven't had the conversation, they just don't know about it. A lot of times kids will make the right decision if he's given the right choice and all the information. I think it's pretty horrible. And one of the quotes from one of the people that was actually one of the young women who was a victim of the site basically said this. I'm going to read it. This is what the quote from the young woman said. "I was submitted to Is Anyone Up by my ex-boyfriend. I'm confronted by friends, family, and strangers that have seen me naked online every day. You may think it's funny, but sometimes I don't even want to leave my house to go to the mall with my family because I fear someone will come up to me while I'm with my mother and mention it. My sisters, they're so ashamed to even be related to me and want to lie to their friends that they are my sisters. I am a disgrace to my family. My self-worth is gone out the window, and I worry that I may never get it back. This keeps me one step away from happiness every single day. I don't know what to do anymore. So they're, again, going back to having these conversations with your children. Of course, age appropriate. If your child is 8, this is probably not the exact same conversation that you would have when they're 14, but having a conversation, as soon as you're giving your child access to the technology, it's your responsibility to talk to them about some of these things up front, because you don't want to do it when it's too late. Because my guess is this girl sends something without thinking to her boyfriend, and next thing you know, it becomes one of the biggest regrets of her life. And it's very hard to undo some of that damage. So I would definitely encourage, and I would say too, we have some information on the website that I'm the senior editor of, parentingtodayskids.com. We have a staff that focuses, we have experts that write on how parents can keep up to date with some of the intersection of their kids and how kids are socializing and growing in technology, because I'll tell you, it changes pretty quickly, and it's a good thing to be able to arm yourself with some of these resources in your parenting toolkit that probably you didn't have to have even 3 years ago. I'll say, you know, my kids are from kindergarten all the way up to high school, and I've seen it change with my boy in high school. There's definitely things that I didn't have to worry about even, you know, 5 years ago. Before, if a child was up, if a child was home, there's only so much damage they could do. But now, you know, I talked to customers here, and they thought their child was home in their bedroom safe when they're actually, you know, either having a, you know, in some cases having a conversation with a sexual predator in another state. And other times, it's just sometimes kids are their own worst enemies. The kids are just making poor choices, like that girl I just read the quote from, that actually wind up with some very serious consequences. So I definitely would encourage people to talk to their kids sooner than later. So moving on is, you know, I would say there is technology that can be used to help fight